Items on the agenda, or I'm sorry, 8 items on the agenda this morning. The procedures for all 8 will be the same. Here in a minute, I'm going to swear staff in. Gretchen's going to read the case. Staff is going to come forward and give the staff report. There's going to be a round of questioning by board members to staff. And when we're done with that, staff's going to take a seat. I'm going to call you, the applicant, forward. You're going to come forward to the podium. Make sure you speak at the podium, at the mic. Things are being recorded, and we need to make sure we can hear you. But you, as the applicant, will come forward. You're going to raise your right hand, state your name and address, get sworn in, justify your project. There'll be a round of questioning by us, the board members, to you, the applicant. And when we're done with that, you may take a seat. I'm going to call forward anybody that wishes to speak in favor of the application and then opposed to the application. Same procedures. You're going to come forward, come to the podium, raise your right hand, be sworn in, state your name and address, tell us why you're in favor of the application, tell us why you're opposed to the application. There might be a round of questioning by board members to that audience. And then when we're done with that, you may take a seat. I will open it up for the board to ask questions of anybody here, and then I'll close the floor and open it up for general discussion among the board members and call for an up and down vote. All right, let's make sure phones are off. And if you need to use your phone, just please excuse yourself from the courtroom. Just make sure it's off when you come back in. And board members, same applies to you. Make sure your mics are on, and let's swear staff in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Thank you.
Okay, Gretchen, if you'd like to read the first one, please.
OC 24-016, an application has been filed requesting a front yard setback variance for a proposed office building on property located at 6450 Claymont Crossing, Crestwood. The property is zoned C3, General Business District.
Okay.
All right. Good morning. Brian Fogel, Assistant Director, Oldham County Planning Development Services. Notification of this morning's hearing was provided on our website on the 28th of March. Adjoining property owner notices were mailed out on April 1st, and a legal advertisement appeared in the Oldham Mirror newspaper on April 11th. As Gretchen read into the record, this is a request for a front yard variance to construct an office building on a corner lot located in the Claymont Springs development in Crestwood. Real quick, where we're located at, the Crestwood exit right here, 329 bypass, where the push pin is here, is the location of the property off of Claymont Crossing intersection, Burger King, Christian Automotive here, and then the South Oldham School Campus. And then more specifically, it's this particular property right here, Burger King, Christian Automotive, Christian Brothers. That's why I kept getting hung up on that. The lot is on our GIS is highlighted in blue right here. The zoning in the area is commercial along Claymont Village Drive here in the red, and then there is residential in the areas that are part of the Claymont Springs development. The Claymont Springs development was originally proposed and approved in January 2003 with the change of zoning that allowed like a mixed-use development of high-density residential, single-family residential, and then the commercial. At that same time, the subdivision plat was approved by the Planning Commission for the development of lots. In March of 2005, following the Planning Commission's approval of the subdivision, staff administratively approved a record plat creating the lots in the subdivision, including a 50-foot front yard setback, which is what the applicants are asking for a variance from. And then just yesterday, the applicants were before our technical review committee for technical comments, because in addition to coming to you all for a request in a front yard setback, they have to go to our planning commission to ask for approval for an entrance onto Claymont Crossing. So ordinarily in the C3 zoning district, there's not a front yard setback, and you can see that highlighted right here. The reason that there's a front yard setback on this particular property is that when it was approved in 2005, a 50-foot front yard building setback line was drawn on the record plat. Just in terms of a little bit of perspective, in 2003, the C3 zoning district did have a 50-foot front yard setback requirement. Our ordinances have changed since then, but because that building line was drawn on the record plat and approved, that means they have a 50-foot front yard setback line unless they're granted a variance. And this is just an image of the record plat with the 50-foot setback line highlighted in yellow here because it's a corner lot. It does have 2 front yards. And the request is to construct a single-story office building on the corner lot that would be 31 feet from the front property line along Claymont Village Drive, requiring a variance of 19 feet. And when we look at the plat here, you'll also notice that the building encroaches on the 50-foot setback line along Claymont Crossing also. But the closest distance is right here, 31 feet, off of Claymont Village Drive. When you scale this out from this corner of the building to the right-of-way line, it's approximately 35 feet. So in terms of your all's consideration, the granting of a variance for 31 feet, which is the shortest distance, would address their setback issue they're having with locating a building on this lot. In their justification statement, they state due to the unique shape of the lot and with it being a corner lot and also the constraints of dealing with utility easements, it makes it difficult for them to locate a building on the lot. And a few pictures of the site. This is standing in the Burger King parking lot, looking uphill at the lot. It's located right here. Claymont Crossings Drive is right there. This is the intersection of Claymont Crossing, Claymont Village right here. So the lot is located right here. Just looking directly at the lot with the Burger King and Christian Brothers Automotive in the background. And then just giving you a sense of how the lot drops off from Claymont Village Drive, which is right here, down towards Burger King and Christian Brothers Automotive. So the request is to construct the single-story office building on the lot with a variance request of 19 feet so they can locate it as close as 31 feet to the front property line. That concludes the staff presentation. In terms of any correspondence or emails, we've not received any. We did receive a phone call from an adjoining property owner after the notices were mailed out, asking general questions about, what's being proposed, and not particularly voicing any concerns. It was more curiosity. Why did I get this letter, and specifically, what are they proposing on the property?
Okay. Thank you, Brian. Questions?
Yeah, Brian, what is that next door worth the, I don't know, there's like 2 things to the left of the property. No, on the map you were in. Go back to that map. You were just there.
Oh, all right.
Go back.
To the left, right here.
To the drawing that looks like this. That, yes.
Okay.
So, to the, I guess, to the left of the property as you're looking.
Here or
No,
the other side?
The other side.
The other side, okay.
Right there.
Right here?
No,
Okay.
right, no, yeah, right there.
Right there, okay.
Yes.
That they're proposing, and I'll let them address this, 2 areas of parking due to the topography of the lot. So this is a smaller parking area right here that would come off of Claymont Village Drive, and their primary parking would be coming off Claymont Crossing right here. So these are 8 parking spaces right here with a set of stairs that goes down the side of the building to access the building over here.
So there would be no parking in front of the building?
That is correct. So it would be an open yard in the front of the building right here. The parking that they're proposing on this level right here would be to the side of the building.
So is that parking area still outside the proposed 31 feet?
The answer is it is in the required front yard setback, but parking is allowed to be in
Okay.
a front yard.
All right, thank you. Okay, that's helpful, thank you.
Okay.
Other questions?
No.
Could you go back to show the slope?
The picture?
Yeah, the picture of the
Yes.
slope, yeah. That right there. All right, so Where am I, where are we facing? Where's Claymont Drive?
Claymont Village Drive, which is the cul-de-sac, is right here.
Okay.
So this four-board fence is the fence that goes around the patio homes.
Got it.
And then the main entrance coming off of Highway 329 bypass, Claymont Crossing, is located right here. So the intersection of those two streets is approximately where you see the single-family home.
Okay.
Is this a multi-tenant office building, or is it for one? tenant?
I would defer that question to
Okay.
the applicant.
Take me back to the 2003, 2005, where we had approval for 0-foot front setbacks, and then it was approved. Why was it changed from 0 to 50, or from 50 to 0 to begin with?
Yeah, so when it was done in 2005, our zoning ordinance for the C3 zoning district had a 50-foot front yard setback requirement. So when they recorded the subdivision plat had to comply with the ordinance as it existed at that time. But the fact that that subdivision plat was recorded showing that 50-foot building line means that that's what the standard is if someone wants to build on that lot today, even though our current ordinance says you have a 0-foot setback in the C3 zoning district. So that's basically the genesis of why they're before you guys asking for the variance, is that they're having difficulty satisfying that 50-foot building line that's part of the record plat.
Okay. All right, other questions? Okay, thank you, Brian. And if we can have the applicant come forward, please. Good morning.
Good morning, Mr. Chairman, members of the board. My name is Cliff Ashburner, and I represent Mason Construction and Development. I have Dan Perkins here from Mason, as well as Mike Hill with Land Design and Development. Mike is the land planner who drew the plan we're talking about today. Just as a preliminary matter, you all are well aware with the standards that apply to variances, and they can be somewhat complicated legally, but I think ultimately variances are appropriate when you have challenging sites, when you have difficult properties that have been impacted by a variety of conditions. And Mike is going to take us through the plan in more detail on that. But as Brian mentioned in his explanation, which I thought was quite thorough, this site within Claymont Springs is, it's approved for the use. Claymont is a mixed-use development that does have some commercial along the bypass, and it kind of steps down in intensity, if you will, as you get closer to the patio homes and the homes to the rear. And so we think the use as an office is a good and a reasonable use for the property. The challenge, of course, is that there is a significant slope that impacts the property. And that significant slope has caused some pretty severe design challenges. In addition to that slope, you have some existing easements that also impact the property that cause the positioning of the building to be somewhat restricted. And Mike can get into that in more detail, and I expect him to get into that in more detail in just a moment. To answer your question, Member Furco, the building is proposed to be a multi-tenant building. So these would be, smaller kind of offices, probably local businesses that are looking to, either people who are growing their business and getting out of their, maybe out of their spare bedroom, or otherwise local businesses that are looking for a smaller office, don't want to be in an urban environment or a larger urban environment. So with that set up, I'd like Mike Hill to come up and talk about the plan and the other conditions on the site that he had to contend with when he was designing the site.
Thank you. Mike, we'll need to get you to get sworn in.
Sure. Mike Hill with Land Design and Development, 503 Washburn Avenue, Louisville, 40222.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. So as Cliff mentioned, this is a site with multiple constraints that made laying out any kind of development a bit of a challenge. Primarily the topography of the site. It's basically kind of two tiers. You know, it may be at a corner lot, but each of the two intersecting roads are at very different elevations. And you can see that somewhat from the pictures and on the development plan I'll show in a second. So you can see the Claymont Village Drive, excuse me, how it sits quite a bit in a different location than Claymont Crossing. And it slopes, you know, toward, excuse me, there we go. So again, another site shot that shows the difference. You know, Burger King getting down toward the bypass is much lower elevation. As you come up Claymont Crossing, you're going uphill, and then when you get down around the corner and turn left on Claymont Village Drive, there's about a 12-foot difference in the elevation of those two streets here, with our lot being in the center. So in order to have a cohesive development that goes across the site, it's either going to take a whole lot of fill on one way or the other, or significant walls. So that's what we're looking at in designing the site. When you factor in the 50-foot required setbacks that exist along both street frontages, so along the north on Claymont Crossing, wrap around the corner down along the kind of southwest on Claymont Village Drive, 50 feet is unusable space according to the zoning ordinance. Within that 50 feet, there's 31 feet worth of two different utility easements. There's a water easement and electric, gas, and phone easement within that space. So we can observe the 31-foot utility easements with the building we've designed, but in order to really have the space usable with the building that's functional, the required parking, required landscaping, required stormwater system that we have to put in, by the time you factor out the 50-foot setback all the way around, you've eaten up about half of the usable space of the site. So we've requested a variance that would allow us a 31-foot setback of the proposed building at the closest point to the property lines. As mentioned, all of all of the buildings would be entered from this side of the building that faces the bypass. So that's going to be the lower elevation. This parking lot would be at the same elevation as the building entrances here. And then when you go around back, this is kind of a side secondary parking lot that would be approximately 12 feet higher in this location. So there really wasn't a way to connect the two parking lots with the grade change. It's, you park here, you go down some steps around the corner to get into the front of the building in that location. There's also a sanitary easement running through the parking lot area of the site, which made it a challenge to avoid that. We're proposing to meet all required landscaping and other requirements of the code. We do have some building elevations that were created by our architect. The bottom elevation is the front. So you would see that elevation with the entryways from the main parking lot. Park here, park in this location, enter in the building here. The rear, as I mentioned, it's 12 feet higher in the back. So that's most of the rear of the building is going to be sunken into the ground. So you won't have any building activity toward the rear of the building. That would be a nuisance. And then the sides, you can see the side differences from the back of the building here sloping downward to the front parking lot area on that side, and then the opposite on the other side of the building. So hopefully that helps explain some of the issues we have. It's an odd shape, it's a small lot, it's full of easements. We think when the Burger King and the Christian Brothers lots were designed and configured, they have a rear shared access. So we think those lots were extended a little bit deeper than they normally would have been, which ate into some of our lot. So at that point in time, our lot was actually reduced in size, which makes even an additional challenge to laying out anything functional, on our site. I think that's all I have for the
All right.
moment.
Thank you, Mike. Questions for Mike? Mike, on that picture there, the question I was asking Brian just a second ago, that was facing, the picture that he had up, that was facing the Claymont Village, that was facing Claymont Crossing. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. I think his picture was somewhere back in this vicinity, looking off in that direction,
Yeah.
where you could see our site was higher, and then it sloped down towards Burger King. I believe Christian Brothers has a retaining wall on the back of their side. It's how they dealt with their grade change.
Okay. All right. All right, further questions for Mike? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Board members, questions for anybody?
I actually do. The change in the C3 for staff, sorry, in the front yard setback to 0 feet, when did that occur, and is there any background about that?
07.
07. So since
Yeah,
07.
2007.
Since then, that hasn't been enforced in C3.
That is correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. All right, thanks, Brian. Any other questions? Okay, I'll close the floor, open it up for discussion.
So given the elevations, at Claymont Drive, you're barely going to be able to see the building. I don't see where there's any safety or visual impacts. And also off of Claymont Crossing, again, I think that the setback there is consistent with the setbacks over by the Burger King, and I don't see any safety issues there as well. Corner looks like there's plenty of visibility. There's not obstructing anything there from a safety perspective. So, and it, I commend the developer for taking, the risk of trying to deal with a challenging lot. So that's where I'm at.
Yeah, I would agree. Also, given all the easements, which I don't think we saw where they were, but knowing the elevation, knowing the land, the testimony of the easements, I would be in agreement with this. Any other discussion? Okay, if not, I'm ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion. Motion to, excuse me, motion to approve OC 24-016 for a variance in the minimum front yard setback to allow construction of an office building on a corner lot located at Claymont Springs subdivision in Crestwood. It will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare, and will not alter the essential character of the general vicinity, and will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public. It will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. Conditions of approval are: the variance shall only apply to the application considered at the April 18th, 2024 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant will obtain approval from the Oldham County Planning Commission to amend the Claymont Springs preliminary plans binding element to allow a parking lot entrance onto Claymont Crossing Drive. And the development of the property shall comply with all established federal, state, and local ordinances and requirements at the time of approval. And that is my motion.
Thank you, Gretchen. Do I have a second?
I'll second.
Thank you, Bill. Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved. Gretchen, you want to read the next one, please?
OC 24-017, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use for a contractor equipment storage in the rear of property located at 4727 West Highway 146 in Buckner. The property is zoned C4 Highway Service District.
Thank you.
All right, Ryan Fisher, Senior Planner with Oldham County Planning and Development. So the proposal is for a conditional use permit for contractor storage buildings located at 4727 West Highway 146 in Buckner. Here is your site information. As she stated, it is a C4 Highway Service District. Do want to make a note on your staff packets. It said 1.2 acres on the size. That was what was on the application, but if you look at the plat, it's actually a 0.94 acre piece there behind the bank. No site history on this piece of property. As far as our case history goes, we did post this to our website, send out adjoining property owner notices on the 3rd, and the public notice appeared in the Era on the 11th of April. So here is the property in question. Here's the bank on 146 next to the Thorntons. Fox Run Road down here to the south, and then the post office right here on the other side of that property. Here's your zoning map showing it is in a C4. And then the place where we're going to be looking at here behind the bank is actually this, and I know it looks like a elementary school kid drew this, but sorry, that was my artwork. So that is the piece of property that we're looking at there behind the bank. So the applicant is proposing 2 contractor equipment storage buildings on that vacant piece of land behind the existing bank building. Property, as we have said, is zoned C4, which requires that contractor's equipment storage building to obtain the conditional use permit. Purpose of that C4 Highway Service District is to provide for suitable locations for general commercial businesses that require heavy infrastructure. And the proposed development shows a proposed 5,400 square foot building and a proposed 9,600 square foot building to be used as office, warehouse, or storage space. Here is your plat, which I have given you copies of in your staff packet, showing both buildings, existing bank building down here to the bottom, and then the 2 proposed buildings to the rear with a proposed access easement going to the right side of the bank. Here is your regulations that I've also attached with your staff packet, showing the contractor's equipment storage, requiring that conditional use permit in the C4. And then a few photos for you looking at the United Citizens Bank. Your area where we're looking at those storage buildings is back here to the rear. Couple directions looking down 146, both directions, one towards the Thorntons, the other one with the post office, looking back down towards beautiful downtown Buckner. Looking back on the property to where the proposed development will go to the rear. Another view of that vacant piece of land at this time. This is looking over towards Fox Run, towards the Meteora, towards the rear of the Thorntons. And then another view. And then back towards the right of the proposed development. So the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit for contractor storage buildings at 4727 West Highway 146 in Buckner. Our potential conditions of approval are the conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered here today at this April 18th, 2024 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. A minor plat application and survey must be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to the issuance of any building permits. Shared road maintenance agreement shall be prepared and agreed upon for all parties affected with that proposed access easement and recorded with that minor plat. And the applicant will be required to obtain a new address for that proposed development in the rear of the bank and coordinate this with our Oldham County GIS manager on that addressing. With that, that concludes my presentation. We did not receive anything on this, any emails, phone calls, nothing on this case.
So Brian, the access is basically through the bank's parking lot right now to the
Yeah, you'll see, let me.
Yeah, right there. Oh, go back. So we're there, right?
So there's a better picture. Let me go back to it. So the access easement is going to go right
Right
down
through there.
right here into. Which should show up on the plat there. Yeah. So here's your existing bank building. Go right down to the right, and then. So you were almost, from that view, almost looking at the proposed 9,600 square foot building.
So it'll be up to the bank and the applicant to take care of that. It will not be taxpayers or anybody like that.
Correct.
Right, okay, good.
Is this on the same plat as the bank?
Currently, yes, and that's why the minor plat is going to have to be required to split that into a separate tract with a separate address.
Okay, other questions? What is, when you were saying this is the site on the back, looking right, and there's some storage units back there. Go back to that picture, please.
Yeah, and I don't know what that is. Do you know what that is, Jim?
I was getting ready to ask that. What is that storage unit? What's behind, the plat behind that? Do you know what those are around?
So this right here is the post office, and then there's another, looks like an office to the rear of that post office, or that may be where they come out with mail. I'm not sure.
Okay.
And then this just looked like some sort of storage building. I don't know.
Okay. All right. And then behind that, do you happen to know what that is behind that? Yeah, back in there. What's all that?
Okay. County Road Department.
Thank you.
We're all learning today, right?
Yeah, exactly. Water towers to the left.
Mm-hmm. Then the Thorntons.
Yeah. Okay. All right. Any other questions? Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
And if we can have the applicant come forward, please. Good morning.
Valerie Shannon on behalf of the applicant Buckner Holdings LLC. Valerie Shannon on behalf of Buckner Holdings LLC. Buckner Holdings LLC does own the entire parcel, and there is a lease with the bank there at the front of the property. I believe recorded with that lease is an easement for access to the rear of that property as it currently sits. Buckner Holdings desires to construct the two new contractor buildings at the back. To one side, of course, is the Thorntons and the storage unit on the south side of the plat. And the building that's on the south side of the plat is contemplated to have some mixed-use office space and storage. The right side or the north side of the plat is contemplated to have just simply storage units at this point, as I understand it. The justification for applying for the conditional use permit is that the objective of the comprehensive plan states that the purpose of getting a conditional use permit in this area is to encourage the development to infill and locate in areas with existing infrastructure and services, moving generally into areas that are already similar in kind to the kind of development that's been proposed. The buildings have the necessary utilities on site, and there's plans in place for adequate stormwater retention. As you've seen from staff presentation all around the building as it sits, are similar types of uses of the property. Its best use in terms of being able to utilize that easement area going through the bank lot to get to the back of the property, which would otherwise remain undeveloped if that easement didn't already exist in the lease. And the proposed buildings are going to provide needed contractor equipment storage for trades and businesses that are already in the Buckner area. And as you well know, this is a growing area, and trades and businesses are always looking for places to store equipment. And at this point, I'll turn it over to Mr. Ron Funk, who is going to speak to you all more about the actual plan itself. Thank you.
Thank you. And Ron, we'll need to get you sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
And name and address, please.
Ron Funk, F-O-N-K, 6452 West Highway 146, Crestwood.
Okay.
If I may, I don't know how to work this equipment up here. Mr. Otterbeck, you were asking questions regarding elevations, and I did stand in the middle of the lot and rotate 360 degrees so that the board members can see what we were seeing from the center of the site.
All right, hang on,
And
Ron.
I think staff did a beautiful job of showing those images. I stood directly in the middle of the site, rotated 360 north, south, east, and west, took photographs just so that you folks could see what that site looks like looking outward.
Hang on, we got to get the overhead working.
Thank you. While that's being done, I'll touch on one thing and that council already alluded to. As far as contractor storage goes, I don't know, for those of you that watch the news or read the paper and stuff like that, there's been kind of a rash over the past several years of contractor equipment being stolen, trucks, skid steers, high dollar equipment. These folks that own and operate businesses that live in some of our wonderful neighborhoods, unfortunately can't keep their equipment in their neighborhoods due to deed restrictions. So this is, we're attempting to fill a need of being able to secure that equipment, give these contractors and other small business owners an opportunity to operate out of a secure facility that doesn't obstruct their HOA restrictions, and then they can have their equipment secured. So this is the north-facing view. As we're looking at this image, the area, let's see, to my right, I think you're seeing it that way as well, would be the post office in front of that storage building that you're seeing there. So that's just one view. And so for what we're discussing, we're very much in keeping with what one of the images are, or the surrounding site. That's looking forward towards Highway 146, which is basically the drive-through section of the bank that's in the forward section of the property. There's a beautiful view of our water tower. And you can see in the great distance, there's the, it's a Mexican restaurant and some office buildings over there. And just off to the left of that image, that's the back of the Thornton's gas station, which is also behind the Thornton's, has a storage unit as well. So that's what you're seeing in that image. We're talking about a very basic building. The large building has 7 overhead garage doors at 14 by 14 and 7 man doors. The building's going to be 50 feet deep. We have the capacity inside of those buildings to build out, if a tenant needs it, a small office area and putting in a half bath. The image that you see at the bottom of the screen is just a side elevation, which is very basic of the structure that we're proposing. I think that council and staff did a beautiful job of presenting what is that we'd like to do and we're requesting permission to do. I'm willing to answer any questions if you folks have it.
Okay, thank you. Any questions for Ron? Ron, if I'm understanding, the storage unit that you just showed is on the, you were asking for 2 different buildings. The 9,600 square foot building is what you just showed the storage unit to be. The front building, or the building on the, I think on the south side, is the 5,400 square foot mixed unit. Yeah, thank you. So can you tell us a little more about what that is?
Well, both buildings are being built as speculative buildings. So the smaller building that we're seeing in this image, both buildings we intend to construct at this moment the same. So the large, it's not back on.
Hang on, put it back.
So the other building that you're seeing, the smaller buildings, at this moment, we're suggesting is going to be a reduced version of the large building.
Okay.
However, if in the event that someone that has a sign company needs a window put in lieu of a massive overhead door, we'd be able to have that flexibility to change the front elevation of the building and take out potentially a 14 by 14 door and maybe put in a window or something to that effect. But in light of the fact that we're speculating who the tenants are going to be, we're trying to build a building that has the capacity of meeting different accommodations based on the tenant's request.
And the general character of the two, they're going to match, is that correct?
Yes, sir. They're going to be built with like materials, same colors and things of that nature. Yes, sir.
Okay. Okay, any other questions for Ron? Okay, thank you, Ron. Brian, was it you that presented this? Did we get any phone calls or email or, okay. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Board members, questions for anybody? Okay, I'm going to close the floor, open it up for discussion. Well, I mean, I think it's a reasonable request. It matches the general character, the storage units around. You know, I know this is spec, but as testimony was given, it is of general-like character of the surrounding area. I'm in support of this application.
I agree.
And the point that there's not storage like this in the area that's being developed, and there are security issues that this would remedy.
Yeah. Okay. All right, I'm ready for a motion.
Okay. Motion to approve OC 24-017 for a conditional use permit for contractor equipment storage in the rear of the property located at 4727 West Highway 146 in Buckner. The proposed use is essential or desirable to the community and does not conflict with the elements, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan based on the fact that the community and/or the neighborhood has a need for the proposed use, and it is compatible with surrounding land uses and the general character of the area. Conditions of approval. The conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at the April 18th, 2024 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. A minor plat application and survey must be submitted to staff for review and approval prior to the issuance of any building permits. A shared road maintenance agreement shall be prepared and agreed upon by all parties affected and recorded with the minor plat. And the applicant will be required to obtain a new address for the proposed development and coordinate this with the Oldham County GIS manager.
Thank you, Gretchen. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? It's been approved. Okay. And Gretchen, if you want to read the next one, please.
OC 24-018, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use for a manufactured home on property located at 5906 West Highway 524 in Westport. The property is zoned CO1 Conservation Residential District and R2 Residential District.
All right. Once again, Ryan Fisher, Senior Planner with Oldham County Planning. So this is a conditional use permit requesting a manufactured home be placed on property at 5906 West Highway 524 in Westport. The zoning on the property is CO1 and R2, Conservation and Residential, and it sits on 1.338 acres of land. No site history. Same case history as before, posted to our website on the 28th. Our adjoiners mailed out on the 3rd of April, and our public notice appeared in the Era on the 11th. So here is the property in question, 5906. You will see here in a second this structure is not here anymore, so don't let that picture fool you. Here is your zoning. So once again, CO1 and R2, the structure will be completely in the R2 zoning area though. So the applicant's requesting that conditional use permit to allow a 2,016 square foot, 4-bedroom, 2-bath manufactured home to be placed on that property. And according to the applicants, this parcel had a manufactured home on the lot previously, and it caught fire in May of 2022. The property is located in both those zoning districts. As I said a second ago, the manufactured home, though, will be placed completely within that R2 zoning district boundaries. Section 060040 requires manufactured homes to obtain that conditional use permit by the appropriate Board of Adjustment. So that's why we're here before you today. And Section 260-280 applies to all manufactured homes proposed to be located on lots outside of our T manufactured home district regulation. So here you see in the R2, manufactured homes, single-family detached, require that conditional use permit. And then this is section 260-280. Both of these things were included within your staff packets for you to take a look at. And one of the conditions of approval is that they shall comply with all of these regulations that are within this section. Here is your floor plan. These were also included in your staff packet from the manufacturer, showing that proposed layout of the manufactured home. And then here are some pictures that were provided by the applicant showing where the manufactured home will be placed. So in summary, the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit for a manufactured home to be placed on that property at 5906 West Highway 524. Potential conditions of approval. Conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at this April 18th, 2024 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant shall comply with all regulations concerning manufactured homes outlined in Oldham County zoning regulations, section 260-280, which is what we just looked at a couple slides ago. And the applicant shall obtain all necessary building permits and inspections from the appropriate agencies before occupying the manufactured home. With that, we didn't receive anything from any adjoiners, any calls, emails, phones, text, anything.
Okay. Any questions?
Are there any other manufactured homes on that stretch?
I believe there's some, and the applicants will be able to tell this to you best, but I believe it's several of the family members all live along that road, and there's other manufactured homes on that lot, but I'll let the applicants address.
Okay, thank you.
You said on that lot.
Oh, I mean on the street, sorry. You
Got it.
read my mind, Larry.
Got it. All right. Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
And if I can have the applicant come forward, please. Good morning.
Good morning.
And if I can get you to be sworn in and state your name and address.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Judy Harley, I'm his mother, 5910 West Highway 524. Oh, sorry. Judy Harley, I'm his mother, and I live at 5910 West Highway 524, which is the property or the house right beside this. There are two other modular homes or manufactured houses currently on the property, so I'll go on and answer that question, and then I'll let him state his name.
So I'm Nick Harley. I'm the applicant. I say we're just looking, like I said, he laid it out for us more or less straightforward. We're looking to put a manufactured home back where there used to be a manufactured home.
Okay. All right, Judy. You said you wanted to explain where they are,
Can I use this or?
Yeah.
Let me go back to we'll go back to there.
All right. This one here is currently my house. It is a brick and siding house. This here is the lot where they're proposing, where he said the previous one had been. This one here at 5904 and the one at 5802 are both manufactured houses. This is also a sister here that is a brick house. So, and then behind all of this is cattle, horse pastures, hay fields. Total property before we started getting our acreage deeded out was probably about 36 acres. So there's probably 30 to 32 acres there that's farmland still.
Okay.
Okay?
All right. Nick, you got anything?
So now you good.
All right. Any questions for the applicants?
Thank you all.
Thank you.
Thank you, guys. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Board members, questions for anybody? Okay, I'm going to close the floor, open up for discussion.
Well, that's pretty straightforward.
Pretty
There
straightforward.
was a manufactured home there before. This is a formality to replace that, so I have no issue with that.
Okay. All right, I'm ready for a motion.
I'll make a motion
Okay.
that we accept the application for the conditional use permit for a manufactured home for Oldham County 24018 on locations 2906 West Highway 524 Westport. It's in the correct zoning district. I move to approve the conditional use permit because the proposal to use is essential or desirable to the community and does not conflict with the elements, objectives, and policies of the comprehensive plan. Granting the conditional use permit will allow the proper integration of the community and the use specifically named in the zoning regulation. The character and the objectives of the proposed use and the potential impacts of the community and its surrounding areas are appropriate. It is compatible with the surrounding land uses and general character of the area. The integrity and character of the zone is specific with restrictions located in that area. The public facilities are available and are adequate. The potential conditions of approval would be the conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at the April 18th, 2024 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant shall comply with all regulations concerning the manufactured homes outlined in Oldham County zoning regulation, Section 260 and 280. The applicant shall obtain all necessary building permits and inspections from the appropriate agencies before occupying the manufactured home. That concludes my motion.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Gretchen. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved. And Gretchen, if you want to read the next one, please.
OC 24-019, an application has been filed requesting a side yard setback variance for a proposed detached accessory structure 0 feet from the side property line on property located at 4702 Chelsea Meadow Way, LaGrange.
Okay.
All right, thank you. Brian Fogel, Assistant Director, Planning Development Services. Notification of today's hearing was provided on our website. Adjoining property owner notices were mailed on the 1st of April, and then a legal advertisement appeared in the Oldham Area newspaper on April 11th. This is a home that's in the Stonefield Trace subdivision, which is located in the Buckner area. So the Oldham County School Campus is located right here, 146 Cedar Point Road. The entrance to Stonefield Trace subdivision is right here, and I'll zoom in here, but the home is located right there. Oldham County Country Club's here, Heather Hills subdivision is here, and then Heather Meadows is right there. And this is an aerial of the neighborhood with the applicant's property highlighted here, showing the home and the swimming pool. And we'll get into the survey plat, but they're proposing to build the detached garage to the side of the house right here without blocking access to the existing garage that's attached to the house. An image off of our GIS showing the property that's a little bit dated because, as you'll see in some photos, There are homes here now. The zoning in the area is residential primarily through the whole neighborhood. And in terms of the site history, Stonefield Trace subdivision was first proposed and approved in March of 1999 for 100 lots on approximately 146 acres. In 2005, the Planning Commission staff approved the record plat that created this particular property, in addition to 28 other properties that are located in Section 4. And then the other history is just in October 2005, a building permit was issued for the construction of the house. And then in July 2012, a building permit was issued for the construction of the in-ground swimming pool. So the zoning ordinance requires that when someone wants to build a detached accessory building, or in this case, the garage, that it be located at least 5 feet from the side and rear property lines. And the applicants are proposing to build it 0 feet. So highlighted here in yellow is that portion of the zoning ordinance stating that the setback requirement is 5 feet, and a couple other things that are kind of pertinent because they're then meeting their requirements. It's saying that if you attach a breezeway between the house and the garage becomes a part of the house and has to meet the setback requirements for the house. That the minimum distance between the house and the detached garage has to be 5 feet. They're meeting that with a proposal to keep it 12 feet from the house. And the other standard here, the detached garage will not occupy more than 35% of the area in their back property. So the request is to build the detached garage 0 feet from the side property line, requiring a variance of 5 feet. And the plat that they've submitted is right here, showing where it's highlighted with the garage located right here, maintaining access to the attached garage that's on the side of the existing house, with the driveway right here. And in their justification statement, the applicants are saying they're requesting it because of the unique shape of the lot and that the affected side property line is a 15-foot wide strip that's part of an open space lot in Stonefield Trace subdivision. A few images of the home. So this is the house right here with the attached garage right there. The proposed garage, and they have a stake out here that you can see, would be located here. And then just an image of the side property line showing the 15-foot wide strip that's part of an open space lot that runs down along the side of the house and then actually expands out behind the entire Stonefield Trace subdivision, with the home here and other homes in the Heather Meadow subdivision. So the request is to construct the detached garage 0 feet from the side property line instead of the required 5 feet. And that concludes the staff presentation. We have not received any outside correspondence from anyone in terms of any public notice that was provided for today's hearing.
Okay, thank you, Brian. Questions?
I have a question. So the drain easement that's 0.46 feet from the proposed garage space, are there any concerns with respect to water? I mean, if we get that close with respect to water migration or any issues with respect to that drain easement not working properly?
Since they would not be doing any construction in the drain easement, the general answer to that would be no. You know, that they can't build in an easement like that, and they're proposing to come up to that property line in that easement, but not encroach over onto the easement because that's not actually part of their property.
Right. Okay. Thank you.
Can you flip through the pictures again? Keep going. That's
One more.
that one. Leave
Okay.
it right there for a second. Is that all the pictures you got?
That is correct. I mean, we have the aerials, but in terms of pictures from the street, that's what we have.
Okay. All right, very good. Thank you.
Okay.
One more question. Not that it's up to us, but just want to make sure there's that subdivision, there's not a restriction on garages facing the street?
Not that I'm aware of. Don't know the specific answer to that, except to dovetail into what you're saying. I mean, the zoning ordinance says the county's not responsible or has any authority to enforce deed restrictions.
Right.
But I don't know the answer to that question specifically.
All right, thank you.
One more thing. If I'm understanding it correctly, you said a breezeway has to be a minimum of 5 feet to be, if it's attached to a house, the breezeway width has to be a minimum of 5 feet, and this one is what, 12?
Well, there is no breezeway that's proposed.
Okay.
If they proposed a breezeway, that converts that detached garage into an attached garage, and then they would have to meet their normal side yard setbacks for that
I
zoning
see.
district. Probably where the 5 feet comes from, it's saying that whenever you build a detached garage, either to the side or to the rear of your home, it has to be separated by a minimum of 5 feet. And what they're proposing is to keep the garage 12 feet.
12 feet.
So they would be satisfying that 5-foot requirement, but then encroaching over on their 5-foot setback on the side.
Okay. I see.
Hang on, reading number 2 there. Accessory structure shall not occupy more than 35% of the area between the rear property line and the principal structure. Okay. All right, any other questions? No. Thanks, Brian.
All right.
And if we can have the applicant come forward, please. Good morning. And I'll get you sworn in.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Name and address, please.
Yes. Hi. Good morning, everyone. My name is Erica Carden. I live in 4702 Chelsea Meadow Way, LaGrange, Kentucky 40031. Well, as he stated, my husband and I wanted to build a detached garage on the side yard of our home. And the reason why I'm here today is to request a variance to the property line requirement to maintain a 5-foot standoff from our neighbor's property and build right up to our property line. Our property line borders our neighborhood common ground and another homeowner. We have already discussed this with our subdivision's HOA board and have received a letter of approval from them. And that letter of approval is included in our application form. The basics of our plan is to build the widest garage possible within the confines of our property. For the reasons stated on our application, we believe our 2-car garage would be consistent with the subdivision's deed restrictions. It would also be aesthetically acceptable regarding the size of our house and would provide the largest area for storage vehicle, utility storage, and a workshop area. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to answer it. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Erica. Questions?
Is there any reason that the space between the house and the garage can't be reduced to meet the 5-foot setback standard? If I'm right, it would be 7 feet between.
Initially, we were going to do 30 feet, and we kind of cut it back in order for us to be right up on the property line. We have it down to 26 now, but we're trying to basically maximize the size of the garage because we're, just of a truck that's kind of big that, and several other things that we were going to store in there. So we were just trying to.
I'm asking if you could reduce the space between the garage and the house.
Oh, the garage and the house.
If it's a minimum of 5 feet and you're 12 feet, if you would reduce that space, you would actually be in compliance with the 5-foot setback.
The reason why we were going to do a 12-foot space is, first of all, it's looking right outside of our kitchen window, so it would be kind of strange to have it right up to the house. And we also wanted to create like a pathway to go out in our backyard, and that's the reason why we were kind of thinking at least a 12-foot would make it more proportion.
Okay.
when you're looking at it from the street, you know.
Okay, thank you.
So I have a question. Looks like there's an attic space above the garage door there. Are there plans for any residential or office type space in
No.
the attic area?
No, not
Okay,
at all, yeah.
Good.
Other questions? Eric, to be honest, I'm having a hard time understanding the hardship. To Gretchen's point, there's two things that we can shuffle around to meet regulations. Number one is that 12-foot distance. I understand you said, you want a pathway, but pathway could be 10 foot. And then why the garage so wide? Instead of 26 feet, if you want to shorten that a little bit, we could easily accommodate the regulations as they are. With those two numbers, shuffle the size of the garage, shuffle the distance between the garage and the house. I understand you say, you're looking right out the kitchen window and you don't want to look at a wall. You are anyway at 12 feet. Now, whether that's, 12 feet
Well,
or...
we were going to put some landscaping there as well, just so when you're looking out from the kitchen window, you're not looking right into a brick wall. So we were planning on putting some landscaping.
12 foot then accommodates not only a walkway, but some landscape. Yeah, I'm struggling with the hardship of meeting this regulation. But then again, you've got that 15-foot open space right beside you.
It's actually 20 feet open space. It's a 15-foot drain easement.
Yeah, good.
And it really affects the rear side of the garage because of the way the lot's shaped. It's like a pie shape.
Yeah.
So the 5 foot doesn't affect the front part of the garage. It's really the rear side on the left rear corner is where it's going to be right on
Zero.
the property line. Yes.
Right on the line.
Yes.
So I have a question about the drain easement. It looks like there's vegetation in that drain easement area. Is there actually like a pipe in there, or is it just like an open culvert type area?
Well, we did put some plants, and certain parts of that area has like a French drain, I believe, that my husband
French
put.
drain type thing?
And otherwise, we just put some rocks for.
Okay. So there's not a pipe going through there. It's just open.
No, there's,
Okay.
yeah.
Okay.
Okay, other questions? Are the lots on the other side of the drain, are those developed yet?
Yes, they are. They're a different neighborhood.
Yeah.
Yes.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Did you tell us there was no email? You did tell us that. There's no email, no fax, no nothing.
That is correct.
Okay,
Brian, did you send notice to the people on the other side of that drain easement?
We did.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, thank you. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Board members, questions for anybody? Okay, I'll close the floor, open it up for discussion.
So Larry, your questions are good and valid. I can understand the applicant's desire to make some room for vegetation by the garage to make it easier to look at from their kitchen window. The drain easement, it sounds like or looks like it does provide a reasonable buffer. I mean, if it did not abut to that drain area, I would probably be inclined to not approve it. It's just way too
I'm in
close.
total
I feel the
agreement with
exact
you.
same way.
We're all in
If
agreement.
that portion of property was not there,
Yeah.
the hardship does not,
Right.
wouldn't require the circumvention
Right.
of the requirements, so.
But because that is there, it's kind of within the aesthetics that I think the regulations are contemplating.
All right, well,
I just add something, you're headed in a direction.
Yeah.
I get the hardship, but there's also unique characteristics. So even though you might not be able to understand a hardship, you can rely on unique characteristics, and you're mentioning those. The other thing is, if you look on the survey, you'll see in the front there's about 8 feet, which does meet the setback, and so only part of the building, of course, because of the shape of the building. So I think it's unique characteristics versus hardship.
Okay.
So to that point, Jim, so I was waffling on the 12-foot, 26-foot, but to that point, it's also 41 feet deep. Testimony said there's a workshop, there's a large, so let's just bring it up instead of 41 feet deep. Can we bring it up and still meet the regulations? I'm in position to approve this, or that's going to be my stance. But I still don't see, not having that open space there, I think the other board members would agree that this would not be approved.
And again, that open space is unique characteristic.
Right.
Yeah, thanks. All right, any other discussion? Okay, I'm ready for a motion.
Motion to approve OC 24-019 for a side yard setback variance for a proposed attached accessory structure 0 feet from the side property line on property located at 4702 Chelsea Meadowway in LaGrange. The variance will not adversely affect the public health, safety, or welfare and will not alter the essential character of this general vicinity and will not cause a hazard or nuisance to the public and will not allow an unreasonable circumvention of the requirements of the zoning regulations. The conditions of approval are the variance shall only apply to the application considered at the April 18th, 2024 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. A breezeway or similar roofed passage will not be constructed or installed connecting the house to the detached garage. The development of the property shall comply with all established federal, state, and local ordinances and requirements at the time of approval. And that is my motion.
Second.
Discussion. One thing we did not talk about on this is commercial space.
Yeah.
I think we did.
Yes, Bill brought it up.
You brought up commercial.
I asked
I heard
if
you
it-
bring up
in the
residential
attic.
or living space.
Yes.
You brought up commercial.
Or an office type, yes. Yep.
All right, do we want to include that in the motion as well?
Can. Was that there were 3, correct?
I think that's a given. Isn't that in the regulations? They would need
living space would be an ADU, and they'd have to come back before us.
Yeah.
Commercial space, we might want to put that in the motion.
Okay, so as a fourth condition of approval, the building shall not be used for any commercial purposes.
Okay.
All right, now do I have a second?
And a second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved.
Okay.
Okay.
OC 24-020, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use for an owner-occupied short-term rental property on property located at 7026 Oregon Creek Road in Pendleton.
Okay, Ryan?
All right. I don't care what temperature it is. There we go. All right. As I like to say, we're at our short-term rental portion of the meeting. So this application has been filed requesting a conditional use permit, and this one's going to be a little bit different than we typically see, but it's going to be for 3 different owner-occupied short-term rentals on this parcel at 7026 Oregon Creek Road in Pendleton. So it is in CO1. The entire property is 46 acres. A little bit of the site history. We saw a couple of these a couple months ago, but on December 20th, 2023, Oldham County Code Enforcement issued a notice of violation for advertising and renting a short-term rental without a proper permit. The applicant was directed to contact our office by January 15th, 2024, and they complied with this directive. Has been a little kind of going back and forth on being able to get the application in, but they did contact us by that deadline that was issued by the code enforcement officer. This was included in your staff packet as well, just showing that notice of violation. for advertising that short-term rental. Case history, we did post this to our website at the end of March, sent out adjoining property owner notices on the 3rd, and our public notice appeared in the Oldham Era on the 11th. So here is the parcel in question, 7026 Oregon Creek Road. Here is your zoning. So the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit for 3 separate owner-occupied short-term rentals on this land. So section 250-050 of our definition states that owner-occupied short-term rental as the owner of record whose primary residence is located on the same lot. And in this case, we'll go through these individually here in just a second, but they do reside on this 46-acre parcel. It also shows that in zoning district CO1 conservation, an owner-occupied short-term rental is required to obtain that conditional use permit through you all, and that's what we're here for today. So once again, the way I'm going to do this is kind of go through each of these short-term rentals individually. So hopefully we'll understand. If we get to the end of the one and we don't understand, just blurt out. You can still confused. So this is the entire parcel of land. Our first short-term rental is going to be in this main house right here. The second one will also be within that main house. And the third one will be up here at what they're going to refer to as the tack room down closer to Oregon Creek Road. So the first short-term rental will be the basement of the main house. So the entire basement, which incorporates 4 bedrooms, and that is here on the star where that main house is located. Here is the floor plan. So bedroom 1, 2, 3, and then 4 here in the middle. So this is the floor plan layout for the basement short-term rental. So that short-term rental has 4 bedrooms, will have a maximum occupancy of 12 according to those regulations that we have in section 250-050. And then parking for that one is going to require 5 parking spaces based off those regulations as well. So that is the first short-term rental, the entire basement, maximum.
Scared the hell out of me.
Woo. Thought I was about to drop.
Uh-huh.
Might need a break after that.
Uh-huh.
Thank you, sir. Yes, so wherever we were there. So yeah, maximum occupancy of 12 and 5 parking spaces required on that first short-term rental. Are we still clear? Okay. The second short-term rental will be the waterfall suite that is on the main floor of the main house. So I've color-coded that with green for your viewing pleasure. And this is the main floor of the house where the occupant will continue to reside. And then the waterfall suite, which has its own exterior entrance and exit, as well as access out to the deck as far as exits go. So it is just 1 bedroom. So that's a maximum occupancy in our regulations for 6 individuals. And then it's going to be required to have 2 parking spaces on its own. Now the third short-term rental is closer down to Oregon Creek Road, and that's the tack room. And that is just 1 bedroom. And so it's going to go and have the same regulations as that waterfall suite with having 6 individuals and then 2 parking spots. And as you can see by the entire lay of the land, I mean, there's plenty of parking. That's not a concern on anything. So 2 parking spots there. So if granted the conditional use permit, the owner must comply with all of us other regulations that we have and requirements listed in our STRP regulations. So the applicant is requesting a conditional use permit for 3 separate owner-occupied short-term rentals. The applicant did tell me on the phone one day on a conversation that a lot of times that basement and the waterfall suite are rented at the same time by the same group of people, but they would be 3 separate listings. So we'll want to do 3 separate short-term rental permits, and I think it's in agreement with Mr. Urban that we would do 3 separate motions and approvals for those 3. And I don't know if the chairman agrees with that or not. So they're requesting approval of those three. The conditions will apply to all three of those proposed short-term rentals, and that's that the conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at this April 18th, 2024 Board of Adjustment public hearing. The applicant shall comply with all regulations concerning short-term rental properties outlined in Oldham County zoning regulations, Section 250-050. Conditional use permit shall be automatically revoked upon transfer and sale of the property, and the applicant shall apply for and be issued a short-term rental property permit before renting the property. And once again, that'll go with all three.
Okay, questions?
I have a question about the basement short-term rental. Is the basement a walkout basement, or is it?
Yeah, it looks like we've got a patio door right here. Looks like a window well egress systems off of all three bedrooms, which would be applicable to building code, as well as a walkout patio door.
And we can ask that of the applicant.
Okay.
Other questions? So, what are it's kind of odd to have, first of all, show me the attack room before I forget that one.
The floor plan of
The
it?
floor plan of the attack room, and explain what I'm looking at there. Because, yeah, so what are, and again, this might be a question for the applicant, but do you know, what we're looking at there?
I'm thinking this question will probably be much better for the applicant, but
Okay,
it does
that's
look
fine.
like barns and then a living space in there with kitchen, bathroom, and a bedroom space.
That would make sense, but I'll ask the applicant.
Okay.
So explain to me, so it's kind of odd that we have multiple STRPs within the same application or the same plot, actually. You've got bed and breakfast, you've got hotels, you've got, I guess explain to me why we're looking at multiple STRPs for this. And we've done things in the past, and I know precedents, we don't need to consider precedents, but we've done things in the past where we have had multiple rentals on the same property. And to be honest with you, I just can't remember what we've done there, but explain to me why the different STRPs.
And can I also maybe
And that's a question for the applicant.
Can I append that question? What is the difference from a regulatory perspective between a short-term rental like this and a bed and breakfast? I mean, what type of
bed and breakfast, that's a hard term to say, has food associated with it. So that's and that's alluded to, I believe, still in our new regulations, but we also have a bed and breakfast policy where that is kind of intended for the purposes of, kind of a single house. People are in different rooms. They come down, have breakfast, and then go. And those don't follow under our current short-term rental regulations. And I will just say, to answer your question just a little bit, is we do have some other similarities. I know we had one that's not very similar with Crestwood Commons, where we had approval for several on that. But Smith Lane is one where there's a couple different houses on the property, where there's a house that's rented, a cabin, and then I think they even have something similar. So once again, not a precedent, but just yeah.
All right. Any other questions? Okay, thank you.
And then I will say, because I don't know if the applicant will want to address this. I did receive one phone call from an adjoining property owner that had concerns about a short-term rental simply because there is another short-term rental in that same general area on Oregon Creek Road. And so their concerns were really that additional short-term rental already being in the area, increased traffic on the narrow county road with those out-of-town guests. The venue can cause various types of noise at night and on weekends, from music to fireworks. And then the application would impede on the conservative residential district and peaceful life of the neighbors. Now, that email was signed by Oregon Creek residents, but she did call and express those concerns over the phone. I jotted notes down for me so I could remember all she said.
Okay.
But I just wanted to let you know that.
Okay, thank you.
All right.
Any other questions? All right, thanks. And if we can have the applicant come forward, please. Morning.
Good morning.
And if you can be sworn in, state your name and address.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Thank you. My name is Glenn Allers. I live at 7026 Oregon Creek Road in Pendleton.
Okay.
And put a little face on the application. Our property is 46 acres. It's nestled in the Oregon Creek Valley. And the large single family that we call the Waterfall House sits above all of that. And so my wife and I, we've been married for 36 years, and we have 14 children, and we've raised them in this home. 6 of our children are adopted from a war-torn nation. And so we are used to having lots of guests, being hospitable to large families that have adopted also. And this home that we built, it suits everyone very well. It's rather large, and in total it's about 7,000 square feet. So the kids have had a literal paradise to grow up in, with lots of trails, horseback riding, caring for chickens, gardens, swimming, and exploring nature. My wife and I are experienced landlords. We've done that. We've been married for 36 years, so that's a long time experience. And so we would like to retain this property to someday leave it to the family to enjoy in perpetuity. And we're seeking this conditional use to allow short-term and mid-term rental to families visiting the local area. It's an amazing setting. It's very private. And there's so much to see in Oldham County and things to do that this is a great comfort. This is, like a lot of people say, this is like being home. These units that I'll tell you about they're private. They don't have access to our home. They have their own entry. So we'd like to offer these 3 options. The Waterfall is a walkout. It's a lower level. There are 4 bedrooms, 2 baths, and a kitchen. And it sits near the home's large water feature. And it has its own entrance and its own parking area. And oftentimes we would not know anybody would be there. The Waterfall Suite is just above it in the middle floor of the home. And it sits above the Waterfall walkout. It has its own parking spot, and it also has its own entrance. Now, those 2 are oftentimes, they could be rented together. And the tack house is in the fields at the base of the property, and it has also an 8-stall, it's an 8-stall horse barn, but with the tack house is a 1-bedroom apartment. And there is ample parking in there. So we don't presently have horses, but people can bring theirs and use the stalls. So we plan to be an affordable vacation spot that will benefit our local economy, provide families a place to find rest and relaxation, and time to connect. Granting the conditional use will not conflict with the goals and objectives of our county's comprehensive plan, nor will it adversely impact the community, the environment, or the rural landscape. And I say we are proud of our community and love our neighbors, and hope you all come for a visit. In response to the concern for noise, there was mention of another property, and that would be the property next door. Ken McFarland is the owner there, and I think that a lot of times when there's noise and stuff over there, it's his family. So I don't think that he doesn't allow large parties like that, loud parties, and neither do we. We're very clear on the fact that we live in the home, and we would provide them quiet hours. So, any questions? I'm glad to answer.
So are you planning to live there while The short-term rental tenants are also there at the same time?
Well, yes, the top floor, there's 3 floors. So the walkout would be a rental, the suite in the middle floor, but the rest of the house is occupied by us.
Okay, other questions? On the picture here, am I looking at a swimming pool right behind the house? Is that what?
Yes, yes. We have a half-mile driveway going uphill, and that's quite a trek for somebody. And then the house is, like I said, it's one of the few houses in Kentucky that is a round structure. Kind of looks like, what is it, the USS Enterprise from the top? Yeah.
I can see that.
Yeah, and the pool in the backyard, the chicken coop. Down there at the very bottom is an outbuilding. It's a workshop.
Talk to me about the tack room. Or do you have plans for expansion or growth on that, or?
At present, no. No.
In the picture that was shown that I was questioning, what was I looking at there? Was I looking at just
You're
different
looking at-
stalls?
Yeah, stalls, horse stalls. Yeah. Yeah. Mhm.
Actually, could you put that back up, please? Yeah, thanks. So go walk through what we're looking at there. The
Okay.
run-in shelter.
Yeah. Well, there's an outside door off of the tack. Let me see. I can use this.
There you go. Yep.
Oh, there you go. Okay, so that is an entrance.
Yeah.
And then also here in the main aisle, there is an entrance.
Okay.
In the bedroom, there is an entrance. And so this comprises the entirety of it.
Okay. Yeah, then the rest of
there
it is
is
just
a-
horse run-ins and stalls.
Well, yeah,
and
this is the
whatnot.
main aisle. This is a concrete aisle.
Yeah.
This is a horse shower. This is a storage area.
Yeah. Yeah.
This is an outside run, and every one of these is a stall.
Yeah.
And then there is a fence line that comes across here, and it gives a side yard for people with dogs. If they bring a dog, it's fenced in, so they'll stay inside, not run the neighborhood.
So in grand total, of the basement, which you referred to as the waterfall, that has a total of 4 rooms. How many people? That was 12 people,
12
correct?
people.
And then the upper room,
And then the upper
was
room
8.
is a suite. There are 2 beds in there, so, and a couch that turns into a bed. There could be a total of 6 people there.
6. Okay. And the reason I'm asking is the person that called had talked about increase in traffic up and down the road in addition to noise. And it is your intent to rent STRP, as a business. You're
Yes.
trying to rent this as much
Yes.
as you can, and
Sure. It's be helpful for us. You know, like I said, we have 14 kids. We have 2 left at home. My youngest is getting his driver's permit today. I don't know. I haven't heard word yet. So I'm thinking that pretty soon it's going to be just Mama and I, and we'll see what happens then. But yeah, we'd kind of like to be able to keep the house. It's just a beautiful place.
all right, other questions? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Ryan?
We also want to just get on the record as far as trying to figure out if that tack room indeed was properly permitted to be a living space.
Okay.
So to do research before we give that occupancy a short-term rental to ensure that that has had all the proper inspections to be a living space out there. So that may be something that we would look at adding into the potential conditions of approval, that we ensure that proper permitting and inspections have taken place on that living space in the tack room.
Proper permitting and inspections.
Inspections.
Okay. Okay, if you'd like to come forward. And if you could address that tack room and proper permitting and
I
inspections.
know that I have a copy of the permit for the septic field, and I don't know, after all these years, I don't know where that would be. I don't know where to look for that right now.
Yeah.
For the building itself. We moved that building from the backside of Glen Oaks Country Club and built it there on the property, so I don't remember. But
Okay, well, should this be approved, that will be one of the conditions of approval, because for exactly what he said, proper permitting and inspections.
and if we cannot find that for some reason, is there something that I can do with the inspections department and get that taken care of?
He would simply have to file a building permit, and they would come out and do inspections
Do
of
all
that,
the inspections
of
and
that
all the
property.
permitting and,
So,
okay. All right,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. I was having trouble remembering where I was procedurally. Is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Board members, questions for anybody? Okay, I'm going to close the floor, open it up for discussion.
So I'm, you know, when these, section 250-050 was approved by the zoning board, I'm not sure what they contemplated in terms of continuous short-term rentals. I think when I think of owner-occupied short-term rental, it means the owner lives there and occasionally they rent it out. I think some of these where there's multiple buildings and when it's a large building like this, the concept is continuous short-term rentals. And although it's not addressed in the statute or the regulations, I don't know what the thinking is there. So that's it's a gray area, or it's a question that is not contemplated anywhere, I don't think. Again, the question is continuous short-term rentals versus occasional short-term rentals is by the intent of the regulations.
Yeah, and to be honest, Bill, I mean, I've never even considered that. STRP is well, I mean, that's what I said. Are you intending on using this as a business and rent it out as a business? Yes, I am.
Yeah, no, I know. I know. That's,
But I've never, and the only reason I'll go down that line of questioning is just traffic, number
Right.
of people. Are you trying to rent this? You have a maximum occupancy for the rental space of 18, and that's the intent is, yeah, I'm trying to rent this thing. But regardless of, the continuity of it and, it's an STRP.
right.
Yeah, so I've never considered short-term versus
Continuous short-term.
continuous short.
Yeah.
Which is
kind of like that's why I asked that bed and breakfast thing. It's like, this is almost like a bed and breakfast, only it doesn't have food, is really kind of what it comes down to. So, I don't know. I mean, I just,
Well, I mean, I'm perfectly okay with it being an STRP. It is kind of weird for me to have 3 different STRPs, and we didn't even ask that, but I guess that's what it is. You're looking for a STRP for the tack room, you're looking for one on the basement, and it's 3 individual entities. So that's what it is.
It's
3
unusual.
different STRP.
Yeah.
It is unusual.
It's definitely an unusual property. It sounds like a beautiful property. So it's very unique, and I can see where it would be appealing to visitors to our community, and it would be a jewel, if you would, in terms of the attractiveness of our community. So it definitely has some positive aspects, I think, as well.
Okay, any other questions?
No.
Let's take the, we're going to do three different motions, and we will do the conditions for each motion individually, and then we'll vote on each motion, and then, you know, before we proceed to the next. So let's take the tack room, well, I guess let's take the first, the main, the basement. Let's take that one
Yeah.
first.
If it's acceptable for the purpose of the motion, I'll refer to them as units 1, 2, and 3 with the description of basement, waterfall suite, and tack house.
Okay?
Okay. All right. Motion to approve OC 24-020. To approve Unit 1, basement for the use of an owner-occupied short-term rental at the property located at 7026 Oregon Creek Road in Pendleton, the character and objectives of the proposed use and the potential impact on the community and its surroundings are appropriate. The conditions of approval that will apply to all three potential short-term rentals are: the conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at the April 18th, 2024 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant shall comply with all regulations concerning short-term rental properties outlined in Oldham County's zoning regulations, sections 250-050. Conditional use permit shall be automatically revoked upon transfer or sale of property. The applicant shall apply for and be issued a short-term rental property permit / license for each rental before renting the property.
Okay,
And that
we
is
have a
motion 1.
Thank you. Do I have a second on that one?
I'll second.
Any discussion on that one? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? That motion's been approved. Next one.
Motion to approve OC 24-020 for Unit 2 Waterfall Suite for the use as an owner-occupied short-term rental at the property located at 7026 Oregon Creek Road in Pendleton. The character and objectives of the proposed use and its potential impacts on the community and its surroundings are appropriate. Do I need to read the conditions for each one, or shall we just say the
Can you incorporate them
conditions-
by reference?
Yeah. The aforementioned conditions of approval will also apply to this motion.
Okay. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? That one's approved.
Motion to approve OC 24-020 for the Unit 3, the tack house, for use as an owner-occupied short-term rental at property at 7026 Oregon Creek Road in Pendleton. The character and objectives of the proposed use and the potential impacts on the community and its surroundings are appropriate. The conditions of approval were the aforementioned conditions applying to the other 2 units.
Plus
Plus.
the proper permitting and inspections.
Oh, yes, and the applicant shall apply for the proper permitting and inspections.
Okay, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Yes.
I think we want to make sure we put in there prior to obtaining a short-term rental permit and renting the property, maybe on the
Prior
end of
to
the,
obtaining the,
after, you know, that-
Okay.
however she said it initially, and then prior to obtaining a short-term rental.
all right.
So I'm not going to issue a short-term rental until I
Right.
confirm with the building inspector
The
that it's been
inspections, okay.
inspected.
So in addition to the 5th condition of approval, it will need to be done prior to receiving a permit,
All right.
correct? That's
All right, do I have a
okay.
second on that?
I'll second it.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? The application has been approved. Okay, if you want to read the next one, please.
OC 24-021, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use for an owner-occupied short-term rental property on property located at 5900 Old LaGrange Road in Crestwood.
Okay.
All right. It's me again, Ryan Fisher, Senior Planner, Oldham County Planning. So once again, a owner-occupied short-term rental. This one at 5900 Old LaGrange Road in Crestwood. On R2 residential zone property and sits on 3.56 acres of land. No site history. As with all the other cases, we posted to our website, notified adjoining owners, and posted in the Oldham area. Here is the property in question on Old LaGrange Road and our zoning map showing it being in an R2 zoned area. So the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit for an owner-occupied short-term rental property. And as not really with before, but our definition states that an owner-occupied short-term rental is the owner of record whose primary residence is located, and this one is going to be on an immediately adjacent lot. And we've had one of these in the past, and that's going to be the case here. So the applicant's primary residence is at 5906 Old LaGrange Road in Crestwood. So our proposed short-term rental is right here. The owner resides in this house here.
On the same lot.
Immediately adjacent lot.
Okay.
So,
Oh, I'm sorry.
Short-term
I'm sorry.
rental here,
Okay.
they live on this lot. Now, before you ask me, because I know you're gonna, this strip of land is essentially flag lot that goes, whoops, I forgot this. I'm not on the map to drag, but there's a flag lot that runs to a piece of property back here. They do not use this as access to this piece of land. This property actually takes access from over here where my mouse is. So that little sliver of land that can't be built on, that can't be, is actually, so once again, I'll just answer that question before you ask me. So the short-term rental property regulations do state that when we're in an R2, owner-occupied does have to come before you for a conditional use permit. The proposed short-term rental here is a 2-story, 3-bedroom residence. And you were provided these drawings in your staff packets showing the first floor of the property and then the second floor with a master bedroom and 2 bedrooms on that upper floor. So with the 3 bedrooms, that'll have a maximum occupancy of 10 individuals. And we're required to have 4 parking spots per our regulations.
Ryan, can you back up just a second to the map or the pic? Not that.
This one?
Back. There. So, geez, you can't see it, but under the red there, at least in our packet, looks like there's a building right by that left corner.
Let me do that one.
Yeah, there we go. There's a couple buildings already there. Are we talking about a new building or one of these existing buildings?
Yeah, it's the existing house that's on that property.
Right by the 5900 number. Okay, gotcha. Thanks.
Yep. So, once again, 10 persons, 4 parking spots, and if granted the conditional use permit, the owner must comply with all those operating requirements and standards that are outlined in our short-term rental regulations that also were included with your staff packet. So in summary, the applicant's requesting a conditional use permit for an owner-occupied short-term rental property at 5900 Old LaGrange Road in Crestwood. Conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at the April 18th, 2024 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant shall comply with all regulations concerning short-term rental properties outlined in zoning regulations section 250-050. Conditional use permit shall be automatically revoked upon transfer or sale of the property, and the applicant shall apply for and be issued a short-term rental property before renting the property. And those are your potential conditions of approval. With that, that concludes my presentation. Received no comments from any adjoiners on this case. We'll entertain any questions. I'll go to this slide.
Yeah, thank you. All right, any questions for Ryan? Okay. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, if we can have the applicant come forward, please. Let's get you sworn in and state your name and address.
Kathleen Shadburn, 5906 Old LaGrange Road, Crestwood.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
And if you can justify the project.
I'm sorry.
If you can justify the project? What did it, tell us if you can fill in the blanks or what it is you're trying to do.
We're trying to rent it as an Airbnb
Okay?
and basically full-time Airbnb. And then also for our family to stay there when they're in town.
Okay. All right, any questions for Kathy? It's Kathy, correct?
Yes, yes.
Okay. Thank you, Kathy. Take a seat.
Okay.
All right, is there anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Opposed? Is there anybody wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Board members, questions for anybody? I do have one question, I guess, for staff and Tate. Again, just going to the flag lot. Ryan, I know you brought that up. Owner occupied is living on the property or adjacent to the property. And this, where they're living, is not technically adjacent to the property. There is a flag lot. Doesn't matter if that piece of the property is 2 feet or 200 feet. There is another piece of property in between these two pieces of property. So I'm bringing that up. If we look at what's allowed, and I know the purpose of this board is to look for relief or offer relief. But if it's a non-owner occupied, then it's not permitted. And technically, this is not a owner occupied. Owner occupied definition is on the property or adjacent to the property. Technically, this is not adjacent.
What is that strip? What is it? What is the strip? Who owns the strip?
So the strip is actually owned by the gentleman that actually just purchased this property here to the rear of this. It is part of their flag lot going back. But is my understanding, only because of conversations with this gentleman of some stuff that he wants to do on his land, is that they're not sure if they can ever get access down here because of some utilities and things of that nature, but it's essentially access back to this lot, although they take access right now off of this.
That's the right of way. We granted some type of variance already. So that's the right of way back to the back property back there. We've already granted like a 30-foot easement or something.
Yeah, I'm not even sure if it's 30 back there. But.
Okay.
Well, so if I understand, just to clarify, it's not just a variance, but it's owned by the person who owns the property in the bank. It's not just an easement or a right of way. It's owned by somebody else.
That property.
Yeah, it's part of that lot, yes.
Right.
So it gives them access to the other. Let me get this straight. How many properties does that lane give access to?
Currently, there's just one back here, and it takes access off of, if you look to the left of this map, there is an access easement that runs down here that gives access to 5950, this address, and there'll be another one right here.
So where's the owner of this property? Where's his lot or her lot or
Where the star is.
Yeah.
the back? Oh, where
This is
star
the
Yeah.
this is the owner of the proposed short-term rental that's here in the red.
Wait. I got me confused. The short-term rental is where the star is.
No, it's where the red is.
Huh?
Where the large red box is, it says proposed short-term rental property,
Yeah.
right here. The star is where the owner,
Oh,
The basic question you're grappling with is it contiguous or not? There's a strip, like Mr. Chairman said, whether it's 2 feet or 200 feet. In this case, it's not 200 feet, but it is not directly contiguous. So you've had to kind of make this decision in the past. If you remember, there was one where even though the property owner owned all the land, they had a minor platted a portion that was in between, and that one was approved.
Yeah,
So
but
you're,
I believe that the owner owned all of that. This
he-
is a separate
the same owner owned all of that, correct?
Okay.
So it's unclear in our regulations what you do in this. It says contiguous. Your unfortunate job is to interpret the regulation. And then it doesn't matter how many access to the back, that's irrelevant. There's a strip.
when we get access, when it's the guy that has the access grant the other,
Well-
grant the applicant here a right of way to use it.
I think you can ask the applicant whether they have the right to walk across that strip to go from one to the other. Whether that's helpful or not, I don't know. Otherwise, they'd have to go down their driveway, down the street, and back up the driveway.
As long as they have a right to go across.
But it's not really what they have right. Can you put that up, please? The definition of owner occupied is you live on the property or you're immediately adjacent. We are not immediately adjacent.
Well,
Therefore, we're not owner occupied.
so what is immediately adjacent? What's the definition of that?
It would have to have a common border, and it doesn't.
Yeah.
And then the one that Jim mentioned, that we did really talk about quite a bit, there was a house, a lot, and another lot. The one in the middle was not immediate, I'm sorry, the owner-occupied house was not immediately adjacent to the lot that was being used as a short-term rental. However, the lot in the middle was owned by that owner, and that's why we allowed that to go through. This is not owned by the owner of the proposed property.
Right. And in that case, there was a remedy. You discussed whether or not that could be consolidated. And that owner said, "Oh, I will if I have to." And yet, there was a different purpose for that consolidation. But you put a binding element that said it could not be sold.
That's right. If it was ever sold,
Yeah.
this CUP is revoked.
That's correct. Yeah. So
And
that
that's what
one's-
settled that.
Yeah. That one had remedies.
We can't apply that here, though, because she can't sell someone else's property.
Yeah, I'm not inclined to approve this. What I'd like to do is call the applicant back forward and ask if they've ever had a discussion or thought about talking to the owners of that little strip and consolidating it, and, if that,
Yeah, that would remedy it. Yeah,
That would
they
remedy
could
it
buy
and
that
make it
strip.
adjacent.
They could buy that strip and.
buy the
yeah,
strip.
right.
It's useless property. You can't build on, we'd have to ask, but it sure looks like it, but we'd have to ask. But I'm inclined to not approve this
Yeah.
thing.
It sets a precedence if we do.
So let's call the applicant forward. Did I ever close the floor? No, I did not.
So first of all, we mow that area. We manage that whole strip. And we have been talking to them to purchase that strip. So, I mean, you're talking 20 feet.
Mhm.
And we manage every piece of it, so.
So why don't we just delay this, give them an opportunity to put it together, and then come back and next month or something, see if we got a deal.
Yeah, I have a question for staff. Can they kind of suspend this without going through the whole application process again? And
Table it.
yeah.
Have you had discussions with the owner about buying that strip and consolidating and?
So this, the property that owns the strip just sold not too long ago.
Mm.
So we were in discussion with the previous owner, but they didn't want to sell it because it was already under contract and they were had already listed the property or whatever. So since then, I have talked to her, the previous owner. I have now found out the new owner's name. So we're going back to him. I've actually talked with Ryan about this in depth. So I really am going to be extremely disappointed if we're holding this off for 20 feet. I mean, we had some really long discussions about all of this. And I mean, we've lived at the current R5906 for 10 years. And we have managed that 20 feet for 10 years. Nobody has touched it but us. So this is really frustrating if we're going to hold this up, because we have done everything. I mean, we've got all the inspections done where we've totally redone this house. Now we're having to replace a pipe. We're going through the septic thing. I mean, everything's been the right way. And 20 feet that we've managed for 10 years is going to hold us up for a few more months. I mean, that's really frustrating. And we will do what we need to do, but to hold us up for a few more months to get this done is...
The adverse possession rules are 5 more years to go, 15 years. You just buy it.
I have a question. Could we approve it contingent upon them owning that land, that strip?
If you were considering that, my vote would be to decline.
Okay.
Now, that's just my vote.
This has been changed recently. I mean, there was a reason the zoning changed all of this to put these
Right.
rules in place.
That's right.
This just happened this past year because we had just a huge amount of people not living on a property. So this was put into place for a very specific purpose. If we were to approve an owner-occupied short-term rental that is not immediately adjacent to the lot, whether it's 20 feet or 200 feet, it is in opposition to that zoning. It's an unreasonable circumvention.
So
we could, table it and not, I mean, if we vote, I don't think it's going to, I wouldn't be in favor for it. But if we table it, you then have the chance to make some accommodations.
Can I ask a question?
Sure.
What was the purpose in the change within the past year? What was the purpose? What was the goal of that?
To put guidance around STRPs. This is a new, STRP is somewhat of a new thing for all the different communities, and this community has decided to put guidance around it and restrictions around it.
So I guess I'm asking though, what was the purpose in doing it? What were you trying to achieve by doing that?
So, again, it wasn't us, it was the zoning board that did that. And what we were seeing is people were living in the community. Maybe they lived in LaGrange and they had a Airbnb in Crestwood or Buckner. And so the regulations were that you needed to be within, I think, X number of miles. But we had real estate agents jumping in and having people in the community buy properties that were reasonably, a few miles from their home or even, down the road, and turning it into an Airbnb. And it was clearly not owner-occupied rental. That's why in an earlier discussion, in fact, I'm going to suggest to staff that they approach the zoning board with respect to this section 250-50 and ask what is the intent of owner-occupied, okay? All right, is a continuous short-term rental within the thought process or concept of 250-50, or did they contemplate someone lived there and occasionally they rented out their home or whatever? So that would help with clarification. And I know we're not going to solve that now. That would be a separate discussion.
This is a topic for a different day.
Right. But to give you background, I mean, that was the issue, is we had literally realtors jumping into the community, putting deals together for properties all over the place for people that lived kind of close, but what's the definition of how close?
Outside the region.
Yeah.
Yeah, because Chicago,
So
California.
they made this law, regulation, Section 250, and that's, it's black and white. That's what it is.
Well, and I understand that, but I can see my house.
Right, I know, I
can
understand.
see my property. I can
This is very unusual.
walk there.
Yeah, this is
So
unusual.
I would really greatly appreciate if you would approve this, and we are working on purchasing that piece. But for us to wait a few more months, I mean, this is just.
All right.
You don't have to buy the whole strip. You just walkway through it.
Well,
Well, I can hear you.
Well, that's an interesting thought.
Yeah, I know.
That is an interesting thought, and I have not. I mean, because we were just going to buy the whole strip.
sell us 2 feet of it.
Yeah.
Okay. All right,
Well, I
thank
can
you.
make that happen in about 5 minutes. So, if we could just.
All right. Let me ask you, would you prefer us to table this so you can remedy the discussion, or would you prefer us to make a motion and vote on this today?
Well, I would prefer an approval contingent on me purchasing 2 feet.
So you would prefer to proceed with a motion?
Well, I guess not, because you've already said you're not going to.
My vote would be to decline. I think others would too.
And I guess I just, I don't understand that. I mean, I understand what the law was for, but that doesn't, I mean, this is not that case. So I'm not understanding why you would not approve this.
Because it is actually very clearly put into the regulation that the owner's property has to be immediately adjacent to the lot. There is another owner's property in between the 2 lots. Whether it's 20 feet or 200 feet, someone else owns that property. That person is not here. We don't know if they're willing to, I mean, they very well may be willing to sell. They may very well be willing to sell a portion of it. But that is not the case today that we're looking at, that we're sitting here today looking at. So if that happens and changes, there would be no issues whatsoever.
Okay, so what is tabling it? What's that look like?
You would be able to, it's tabled until you're ready to come back before us again with amendments.
So would that be another month or?
That's up to you.
Okay,
That saves you the application piece.
okay.
If it's voted, if there's a motion today and voted upon and declined, and you want to come back before us with a different motion or a different application, you'd have to resubmit the application, paid, whatever the amount is, $500, whatever. Tabling tables it.
Okay, then I'll table it.
All right. Board members, questions for anybody else in the audience?
No question. I think it's a wise process.
Okay, thank you. Let me take a seat. All right, if no other questions for anybody, I'm ready to close the floor. So moved, I'll close the floor, open up for discussion.
I don't know how we table. Just
motion to table.
It's tabled and it's done. There's no more to talk about, right?
You can table it for an indefinite time until the applicant comes back.
Okay.
You don't have to put a time frame on it.
All right.
If it takes 30 days or 60 days, whatever it takes for them.
So my only question is, just hypothetically, okay, if the applicant had a contract to close on the purchase of some of that land, and, I don't know how long it would take to close. I mean, I can't imagine it's going to be that big a deal. Would we then approve a contingent, approve it contingently? Could we approve it
Well,
contingently?
that's hypothetical and I don't
Yeah,
know.
Yeah.
right.
yeah. You could sit here and try to figure out all the hypotheticals.
Yeah,
all
I know.
morning and-
Okay.
yeah.
There's a lot
All
of
right,
ways to skin
so-
this cat, I can tell you that. I can skin it in a heartbeat, but I'd have to,
Right.
she could do a long-term rental if she wanted to and then cancel it.
Yeah. I think you need to just table it until there's a remedy.
Think about that.
Yeah, that's right. All right, do we need a motion to table? Or Jim, do I just table it?
I
We need
have
a
another
motion. All right,
question. So if they
Make a motion
purchased
to
it and
table.
allowed an easement, would that work? Purchase the land and
But-
gave an
but
easement?
I don't know. I don't know. Let's decide on the
Yeah.
case before us today.
All right. So we'll
So
table.
I need a motion. If we're looking to table it, I need a motion to table it.
All right, motion to table OC 24-021 and to another date when the applicant purchases the property between the two lots in question.
All right, very good. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been tabled.
2 more.
Board members, do we need a short break?
Please.
I need a motion.
Motion to take a break.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, please turn your mics off. Short break. Okay, I need a motion to come back into session. Thank you, Bill. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed? Back in session. Please make sure your phones are off, mics are on. And Gretchen, if you want to read the next one, please.
OC 24-022, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use for an owner-occupied short-term rental property located at 1910 East Mount Zion Road in Crestwood.
Okay.
All right. Ryan Fisher, Senior Planner with Oldham County Planning. So this is once again a conditional use permit for an owner-occupied short-term rental on an immediately adjacent lot to the short-term rental. It is zoned agricultural and sits on 1.329 acres. No site history, as with before. We posted to our website, sent out adjoining property owner notices, and posted in the Oldham era on the dates provided. And here is the property in question, 1910 East Mount Zion Road. Our zoning map showing it is zoned agricultural. So the applicant's requesting that conditional use permit for an owner-occupied short-term rental. And as I said earlier, this one is also on an immediately adjacent lot of the short-term rental property. So here is our proposed short-term rental, the red box. And the owner, the applicant, resides at 1900 East Mount Zion Road.
What's that thing in the middle there? That
Thought I could click off of it real quick
Mm-mm.
before you ask, but I'm not that fast. So this is just an access easement that in case anybody wants to ever possibly build a kid or anything like that on any of these lots, that there's access there. But the owners own all
They own all of that.
this
Okay, good.
property.
Thank you.
Including the farm to the left. So they're
Okay.
owners of all of this land. So, all right. So in agricultural, once again, we have to ask for a conditional use permit for the owner-occupied short-term rental, and that's why we're here. And the proposed short-term rental is a 2-story, 4-bedroom residence with a partially finished basement. Here's the room layout dimensions. I do believe I included these in your staff packet, but you can see the first floor has 2 bedrooms, and then 2 bedrooms on the second floor. And then the partially finished basement up here at the top with a family room. So the short-term rental has 4 bedrooms, and according to our regulations, doing the math, that would be the maximum occupancy of 12 individuals. And then based off of that, our parking would require 5 parking spots for those guests. If granted the conditional use, the owner must comply with all those operating requirements and standards outlined in the short-term rental regulations. So in summary, the applicant is requesting a conditional use for the owner-occupied short-term rental property at 1910 East Mount Zion Road in Crestwood. And as with the rest of our short-term rentals, those potential conditions of approval, it shall only apply to the plans, the application considered here today at the April 18th hearing. The applicant shall comply with all regulations outlined in the short-term rental property regulations. The conditional use permit shall be automatically revoked upon transfer or sale of the property. And the applicant shall apply for and be issued a short-term rental property permit before renting the property. With that, that is all I have.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Ryan? Okay, thanks. And if we can have the applicant come forward, please. Hello, good morning.
Good morning. Yes. Chairman and members of the board, I am the applicant. My name is Jody Curry, and I live in where the Star is located. That is the property we live on. We have lived on our farm for...
Oh, I'm sorry. We need to swear you in.
Oh, yeah, I'm sworn in.
And I'm sorry, was it, your name was?
It's Jody Curry.
Jody, okay.
Everybody calls me
Very
Jody.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Thank you.
Jody, before we get started, I apologize. The application, and maybe I need to question Ryan, is Keith and Glenna Curry?
I'm Glenna.
You're Glenna?
Yes.
Okay.
My parents did not choose to name me what they were going to call me. I don't know.
All right, you may proceed. Go ahead.
All right. So we live on the house. Well, one portion of our farm is the house in 5 acres with a star. We've lived there for 35 years. We, through, the passing of parents and such, we've acquired more farm, as I look at it, to the left. And then our neighbor of 35 years passed away recently, and we made the decision that we wanted to purchase that property and make it a part of what my son loves to call the compound. So we've made it part of the compound. And multiple purposes, but we don't want it to just sit empty. Obviously, if we have a lot of family come visit, they might use it. But in the meanwhile, we wanted to have the opportunity to use it as an Airbnb when it's not being used by family visiting or such. We don't plan to charge them.
Okay. All right, questions for Lena? For Jody?
That's fine.
Jody, who owns like that large property to
The property, one parcel to the left of the star as I look at it, or
well, below the pink or below the...
below the red.
Yeah, below the red there.
That is owned by Don Neal and his wife. It's in trust with the Neal family.
Okay.
Mrs. Neal passed away within the last year and a half. So now Mr. Neal lives there. And that easement was for him, in case they ever wanted to put a barn in that area.
I see. Okay, that's helpful.
Or they raise beef cattle, so we made that decision 35 years ago.
Okay, any other questions for Jody?
No.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Ryan, did you answer if there's been any email, phone call, or anything on this one? Maybe you did, I just didn't hear.
I don't think I did on this one. I wanted you to ask me this time. No, I've received nothing on this case.
Okay, thank you. Anybody here wishing to speak in favor of the application? Wishing to speak in opposition to the application? Board members, questions for anybody? All right, I'm going to close the floor, open it up for discussion.
Nope, I don't have any issue with that at all.
I'm good with it.
It's pretty cut and dry. I'm ready for a motion.
Motion to approve OC 24-022 for a conditional use permit for an owner-occupied short-term rental property located at 1910 East Mount Zion Road in Crestwood. The character and objectives of the proposed use and the potential impacts on the community and its surroundings are appropriate. The conditions of approval are as follows. The conditional use permit shall only apply to the application considered at the April 18th, 2024 Oldham County Board of Adjustments public hearing. The applicant shall comply with all regulations concerning short-term rental properties outlined in the Oldham County zoning regulations, sections 250-050. Conditional use permit shall be automatically revoked upon transfer or sale of the property, and the applicant shall apply for and be issued a short-term rental property permit / license before renting the property.
Okay.
That is all.
Thank you. Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you, Bill. Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? It's been approved. And Gretchen, if you want to read the last one, please.
Ma'am. OC 24-023, an application has been filed requesting a conditional use for an owner-occupied short-term rental property on property located at 6050 Old LaGrange Road in Crestwood.
Okay, Ryan.
All right, Ryan Fisher again, Senior Planner with Oldham County Planning. So lastly, this one is a conditional use permit for owner-occupied short-term rental at 6050 Old LaGrange Road in Crestwood on an R2 residentially zoned piece of property, and the property is 6.59 acres. So a little bit of the site history there, and we'll kind of go over this. So the owner actually owns both pieces of these property you'll see, and you may remember this case. But on January 19th, 2023, and in your staff packet, I did realize it said 2024, only because I've finally gotten used to putting that down, and now I can't put any other date down. So it was actually January 19th, 2023. The Oldham County Board of Adjustments approved a conditional use permit, and the case number was OC 23001, for a recreational camp and farm stay for the property located at 6100 Old LaGrange Road, which is where the owner and the applicant resides. So that motion passed on a vote of 4-0. And if you can remember, on the same date, you all also approved a conditional use permit for 1 to 4 stacked containers that were going to be used as accessory dwelling units on that property. So once again, that was on the neighboring property. That also passed on a vote of 4-0. So as far as this case goes, this was posted to the website at the end of March. We sent out our adjoining property owner notices, and the public notice appeared in the ERA on the 11th. So this right here, 6100, is the property that you all had approved the containers on. This property here next door to it is actually where they're proposing to do the short-term rental in this case. So both properties are within the R2 residentially zoned area. So the applicant's requesting that conditional use permit for an owner-occupied short-term rental. And once again, this is one of those immediately adjacent lot cases. So the proposed short-term rental property, once again, is going to be on the property of 6050, and the owner and the applicant resides at 6100 Old LaGrange Road. They also operate a short-term rental and have proper permits for their main house that they use as a short-term rental as well. So we're here before you because R2 requires those owner-occupieds to go through the conditional use process. So this proposed short-term rental is going to be an Airstream trailer, and I've included a picture of one for you, not the one the applicant's provided. She'll have to let you know what actual model they're looking at, but I just wanted, in case you all had questions of what is an Airstream, I wanted to throw one up there for you. The applicant is seeking approval for up to 3 of these potentially. According to the applicant's justification statement, the Airstream sleeps 5. So this one's a little strange in the fact that it doesn't necessarily have bedrooms. So to be able to classify the occupancy, I put that down in case that's what you all want to stipulate the maximum occupancy be. With that as well, kind of difficult to figure out parking spots, and so I just took that maximum occupancy of 5, divided it by the 2.5, which our regulations state, which gives 2 parking spots per Airstream. So here is the plot plan that the applicant provided. Once again, here's the property line between 6100 and 6050. You had the barn, and that Airstream is completely parked on this property. So that's where I took that to be, you know, the immediately adjacent of the owner, and that's where the Airstream plans to be, as well as parking directly in front of the Airstream. So if granted the conditional use permit, the owner must also comply with all those other operating requirements and standards. And so they're requesting a conditional use permit for up to 1 to 3 Airstreams on that 6050 Old LaGrange Road property. So the kind of a lot of different facets there. You've got the neighboring property was approved as a recreational campground back in January of last year. This is actually on the neighboring lot, so a lot of stuff to unpack there. And then the potential conditions of approval, as always, we've got shall apply to the application considered here today at this hearing. The applicant shall comply with those short-term rental regulations. Conditional use permit shall be automatically revoked upon transfer sale of the property, and they have to apply for and be issued the short-term rental property before renting the property. And then if you all do choose to pass, we probably ought to put one in there about the maximum occupancy on this, just because it is a little different than we typically see. With that being said, that's all I've got. I did not receive any phone calls or anything. I did speak with verbally in person one of the adjoining property owners who said he didn't have an issue with this, but nothing more than that.
Okay, thank you. Questions for Ryan? Okay, thanks. And if we can have the applicant come forward, please. to get you sworn in and state your name and address.
Jessica Wachterl. The property is 6050 Old LaGrange Road.
Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay. And if you could justify the project or fill in any blanks that you may have had.
Yep, we're a horse property. We grow flowers. My husband and I and our family enjoy the farm so much that we enjoy sharing the farm through our current Airbnb in the house a few times a year. And so this is just another avenue to bring people into the farm and host them on the farm. And I got the permit for the container homes in 2023. Have not completed that, but this Airstream is in an effort to make sure I want people on the farm full time.
I'm sorry, what permits did you try to get in 2023? I apologize.
We got the container homes on the other
okay,
adjoining
okay.
property,
Yeah.
but I have not moved forward with those yet. This Airstream is something that we can kind of see how we like having people on the property that's not permanent like the container homes.
Okay. Okay, any questions?
No.
On an Airstream, I have no clue. I've never even looked into campers and whatnot. Are there building permits with an Airstream? Is there a certificate of occupancy with an Airstream?
Potentially, but the renovation of this Airstream is being done by Vintage Base Camp in Crestwood. That's all they do is Airstreams, renovations.
Renovations of Airstreams?
Yeah, the one we bought was in 1977. It's been completely gutted out and completely put back into remodel. So they're
So in
handling
order
all
to
of that.
get a certificate of occupancy, you need the correct permits, building permits and electrical permits. I have no idea. Do they have?
I'm not sure because they're handling all of that for me.
Okay.
Yep.
How many of these things can you have on your property?
How many of these things can you have on your property?
How many? Well, it's almost 7 acres. I
As
don't.
many as you can cram in there.
No, I don't want any more than 3.
But,
Yeah.
okay. All right. And an Airstream is a camper.
Mm-hmm.
And what differentiates that from any other mobile type camping, just a tent? Is a tent the same thing as an Airstream? Doesn't have a bathroom in it, but
Yeah, I would.
it's a mobile.
say
I can
it's the
pick it up and
same.
take it with me.
Yep. Yep.
Okay. All right. Board members, any other questions?
Well, just to extend on that, what's the difference between that and the units that were approved for the lot where you live on right now, the small homes or whatever, portable, I forget what they're called.
I mean, I think this fits the mold more than the container homes.
Container homes, yeah,
Yeah.
container homes are,
But I guess the best classification back in 2023 was an RV campsite. That's what they decided.
so a container home, how does a container home compare to a
The
Airstream?
container home is set on like a foundation.
Okay.
It's a permanent structure.
It's a permanent structure.
It's got certificate of occupancy.
That's right.
It's got building permits.
Yes. Yes.
I see.
It's like
Okay.
building a small home.
It's
And you
a
were-
home. It just
Yeah,
happens to be
with
containers.
structure.
You were approved for a 40-person maximum occupancy for those already, but you're not doing any right now.
This is the first trial to make sure I don't hate people on the farm all the time. I'm going to share my farm, but if I get a lot of people in or we do the Airstream and it becomes successful, which I believe it will be, I want to make sure I enjoy having people on the farm on my personal property all the time. So before I invest in a permanent structure like a container home that I wouldn't sell off, I want to do the Airstreams first to make sure that works, and then we'll pursue the other one if we choose to.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much.
Okay.
Any phone calls, emails, whatnot of support or opposition? No?
Yeah, nothing other than the conversation I had with the one adjoiner in the back that Mr. Nelson that said he was fine with what they were doing.
Okay, thank you. Seeing nobody else in the courtroom, nobody here wishing to speak in favor or opposition. Jessica, do you have any final statements? Anything else to share? Board, questions for anybody in the audience? Okay, I'll close the floor, open it up for discussion. Guys, I'm not in support of this at all. For a short-term rental property, I am looking for permanent structures. Something that they can just fold up the awning and go on to the next mobile home park. I'm not in support of.
That's what I was wondering, what makes it not a trailer park?
Yeah. So I mean that's my position on this. Is I'll be denying it for my vote.
Yeah.
And I guess it's that permitting and certificate of occupancy, I think, is what makes it that permanent structure. All right, any other discussion? If not, I'm ready for a motion.
What happened to Gretchen? She's gone?
He's gone. We need to take a short break in order to draft a motion?
I'm just trying to figure out where the denial motions are. Are they in here somewhere?
Yeah, second page.
Second page.
Motions start on page 2 in your staff report. Approval or denial.
Underneath potential conditions of approval.
Oh, down there. I'm sorry. Okay, thank you. So a motion to deny the conditional use because the proposed use is not essential or desirable to the community, or is in conflict with the elements and objectives of the comprehensive plan, or not in compliance with the zoning regulations based on the following factual determinations. And basically, it comes down to the use of a trailer for a short-term, or an Airstream, for a short-term rental versus a permanent structure for a short-term rental. And the potential precedent that might set for the community with respect to just the whole concept of short-term rentals using trailers or Airstreams or portable housing going forward. So and plus the applicant has already received permit for permanent structures, that container homes that start with just one of those and see how that goes, and where she's already approved. So are there other conditions? I guess that's it, right?
Okay. All righty, we have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? The application's been denied. Okay. We have minutes from last month. Do you guys have any adjustments to the minutes? If not, if I can get a motion for approval.
I move we approve minutes of last month.
Thank you, Mark. Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed? Minutes approved. Anything else? Any other business or discussion?
Well, a couple of things that we've covered separately, and I'll talk to Gretchen about this. You know, on the first case, she asked a question about setbacks in commercial, and in 07, before 07, there were setbacks. After 07, the setback is 0. I want to explain. There's a thing called Plan Certain. So when that development was approved with those setbacks, you fall under those regulations. And if the regulations change, it doesn't change the conditions that Plan Certain was approved by. So again, you approve the variance, but that's the difference between, she had asked the question about if this were done today, she didn't ask it this way, the setback would have been 0. So it would have been fine. I want to talk quickly, generically, about your question about length of time. That's not regulated by any regulation, and we won't. The opportunity for somebody to come in here and make an application, if for some reason there was a condition that you wanted to place on a approval of a short-term rental that limited the amount of time, this is where it happens. You don't do that in a regulation. So the idea of a short-term rental is for any period of time. They can rent it every day or once a year. It's you approve it unless you decide to put a condition on that.
So you don't think the zoning board would address that?
I think it's too complicated.
So what separates short-term from long-term is 30-day mark.
Well, no.
My
he's
point
talking
is
about the number of
continuous
times.
short-term rentals, like just every night. I mean,
I get that.
365 days a year.
I get that, but if somebody's asking for an STRP, they're looking for something under a 30-day rental, and it's every day.
As far as I know, well, you can put a tent out, rent your tent.
That's not what we're talking about,
No,
Kate.
no,
We're talking about
that's
the
not-
length of time,
the-
which is less than
yes.
30 days,
Right.
but then the frequency. You're
frequency.
asking about
Right.
frequency. And that's what I want to focus on.
How many days a year, if you would?
We have never in developing regulations talked about frequency.
Right.
We may have when we initially started it, but we chose to not ever try to manage. The difficulty is, how do you report that? How do we know? Well, you can do it based on whether or not they're reporting the, usually it's through the short-term rental that you pay your hotel tax. It would get so complicated to
Right.
manage the frequency. Again, the frequency, not the length of time, the frequency. So really, in each application, if for some reason there was a condition that you wanted to place on that about frequency, you could do it here. You can manage the frequency if it became an issue. So somebody says, well, look, I don't mind if it's done for Derby and PGA
Right.
and Thanksgiving and whatever, but anytime, all the time, if the applicant, you got into discussion, the applicant agreed, said, look, I really only want to do it 30 times a year, you can put a condition on it. Then the question is still, how do we
Enforce
how do we
that, yeah.
enforce
Mhm.
that? How do
Right,
we know?
right.
It's
Yeah.
nearly, we don't have staff to do
yeah,
that. We
I
don't have
hear
a
you.
reporting system. We don't have, so if you're going to approve a short-term rental, it is for as many times as they choose.
Well, I guess by the nature of short-term rental properties being adjacent to the owner's property, for example, I could, work with a realtor, buy up all my neighbors' properties, turn them all into short-term rental, and basically have the whole hotel street, short-term rental street, in Oldham County, where we've got 15 short-term rental, they're adjacent to where I live.
Do we need to adjourn this meeting?
Well, it's,
Doesn't matter?
No, it does, I don't think it matters. We're not making any decisions. We're having a
Right, no, I'm just
discussion.
talking about, I don't know, it's an issue.
The short-term rental is a business.
Right.
Let's start there.
Yeah.
So the opportunity to conduct a business out of a residential property is not a right, I'll call it a privilege. And the privilege you acquire by getting a conditional use permit. Starting to make up scenarios about buying all the properties on the street, well, if it starts happening, then we got another issue.
Right.
But The reality is each case is viewed separately.
That's a good point. Yeah, that's
And
good.
we are seeing, like today's, where you had 3 short-term rental opportunities on one property. The opportunity in the last case with the containers, that had more potential for the number of people. Your job is to interpret the regulation and consider appropriateness.
Right.
To make up additional scenarios, don't worry about it.
Right.
Just if they come in. Now, one of the things we did do that when we saw people coming from, you mentioned local, it really wasn't.
No,
it was
Chicago
started
and
because of
California and
Chicago and
Canada.
Tennessee and
Yeah.
Canada,
Right.
Yeah.
as many other communities
Right.
saw it. And we chose to eliminate the non-owner occupied. But in doing so, understood that there could be scenarios where they also own the adjoining property. The answer to the question about that was we saw that there could be Oldham County landowners who owned multiple parcels adjacent to each other. Now, he grappled with one that it was separated. You did
Right.
that in a previous case. It's again, falls on your shoulders to determine, how are you interpreting the regulations?
Right. Thank you. That's helpful. Yeah, that's very helpful. Thank you, Jim.
I think I covered all the couple of things I
Okay.
wanted to.
Thank you.
All right.
All right, any other business? Do we have meetings or items for next month?
Yeah, May 16th, I believe, is the date. We've got 2 cases.
Okay.
So we'll take it a little easier on you next month. So,
Board members?
And again, it's fine that we have this, we're still on, because, again, it's an important discussion, I think, that sometimes you all direct staff on what to do. We don't tell you what to do. Going back to short-term rentals, we are now seeing a couple of different scenarios. We had one come in several months ago. There were 6 cabins. We thought that was more like a recreational camp. We've had those. We made an assumption in writing the regulations it was going to be one building versus several buildings. So if there are other considerations that you see by reviewing cases that you think that staff should bring through the study review committee or at least address, we do have a mechanism for addressing it. Now, whether it goes anywhere or not.
Right.
But again, the opportunity to consider different things, or tell us, look, if you see more than one building, it's a recreational camp versus, or how do we interpret the regulations? Because again, one of your jobs is to interpret the black and white of the regulations.
What did we do with the one on, not that precedent is set, I get that, but what did we do on the one that had 6 cabins? Was that one STRP?
It was a recreational camp.
It was a record, and that's what we motioned it as or voted it?
Yes.
And now that I'm thinking about it, STRP, it runs with the property. It doesn't run with each building, or possibly the one today where we issued 3 different motions.
You did.
Should that not have just been one?
I think honestly could go either way. You did condition ones
One a
differently
little
than
differently.
the others
Right.
because we weren't certain about
Building permits.
permit. Yeah. And again, that's a public safety issue. When you have a tack room where you have horses and now you have a resident, was it fire separated? That's one of the biggest issues. Is it fire separated?
All right.
So.
Now, your point about recreational camps, that's important too.
Yeah.
That's a whole separate category.
Kind of
Yeah.
it's expanded a little bit beyond just a single house.
Right.
For short-term rental.
Yeah, that's good. Okay.
Great, thank you.
Thank you. Can I get a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Discussion. All in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed, meeting adjourned.